Good afternoon from Singapore and good morning to our friends joining us from the Netherlands and Europe. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today's session of our Future of Food series on alternative proteins. My name is Wei Min from SGInnovate. We are a government-owned organization in Singapore who really believes in the power of science and technology, along with the positive impact of deep tech to benefit humanity. A good part of our work also involves investing in startups, building a global community of scientists and bringing their research from lab to market, building deep tech talents, as well as working with our ecosystem partners in scaling deep tech for improving the lives of many around the world. And that is why we have formed this community where our work allows us to engage the deep tech ecosystem through connecting people and knowledge sharing events such as the one we are doing today. Today, with the Netherlands, we have partnered with the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore to bring you this webinar series on the future of food. Previously, we have talked about traditional farms that are getting smarter, having urban farms in cities, and also tackling issues on food waste. Today, we look to addressing meeting the global population consumption needs with alternative proteins along with the challenges that comes with it. With that, do allow me to invite our friend and partner from the Netherlands Embassy to say a couple of words before we get started on the event. Sabine, please.
Yes, thank you, Wei Min, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to the fourth webinar on the future of food. Meat has been a main source of protein in developed markets for years, and there has been an increased appetite for traditional protein in developed markets in the recent years. However, changing consumer behaviors and interest in alternative protein sources due to health and environmental concerns as well as animal welfare have made way for growth in the alternative proteins markets. Alternative proteins come in many forms like algae, plant-based, cultured and/or insects. Today our speakers Max, Corian and Tom will tell us more about their journeys in the world of alternative proteins. Before I hand over to our moderator of today, Angela Tay from AgFunder, I would like to thank SGInnovate, our moderator and our speakers for their support and effort. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind you all about the Global Stars call. Global Stars is a governmental funding instrument that supports collaborative R&D development between Dutch and Singapore companies. Agri-food technology is one of the focus areas of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency next to circular economy, digital technologies and climate adaptation. You can sign up for the call until the 25th of August. On the 10th of September, Enterprise Europe Network, the Netherlands Innovation Network and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, RVO, are organizing a technology matchmaking session for Dutch and Singapore companies. Companies from Singapore or the Netherlands in the area of agri-food innovation, sustainability, digitalization or manufacturing industry 4.0 looking for a project partner are invited to join us for this webinar. After this webinar today, a link will be sent to you all. Last but not least, I would like to highlight that tonight at 7:30 p.m. the Good Food Institute Asia Pacific is hosting the Asia Summit on Alternative Proteins. They will take a deep dive into the alternative protein sector in Asia Pacific, sharing the real stories behind some of the most successful entrepreneurs, busting myths and exploring challenges and opportunities. For now, over to you, Angela.
Thank you very much, Sabine, and I'd like to thank our friends at the Dutch Embassy as well as SGInnovate for this opportunity to be part of this discussion. I'm Angela and the moderator for this session, and I'm part of AgFunder's investment team based here in Singapore. Now, just a few words about AgFunder. We are a venture capital firm headquartered in San Francisco, and we also have an investment team based here in Singapore. We recently launched our fifth fund, a Global Grow Impact Fund, where we will invest in technologies that will drive positive impact and sustainability across our food systems. And you may also already be subscribing to AgFunder News, where our correspondents from around the world bring you breaking news in agri and food tech innovations and investments from around the world. And finally, we also run Grow Accelerator based here in Singapore, Southeast Asia's first dedicated accelerator for impact, where we're trying to help do our part to grow the agri-food tech ecosystem of Asia and ASEAN. All right, so alternative proteins. Alternative protein startups had a really big year in 2019. The sector had its first IPO, unicorns, and so many new products hitting and expanding in the markets. They're just available everywhere: grocery stores, fast food giants, fruit producers. So while plant-based companies such as Impossible Foods and Beyond Meats had dominated headlines from pretty much last year and this year, there are scores of so many other companies, particularly from Asia as well as Netherlands, addressing consumer demand for animal-free products from different angles. And today, we'd like to just turn our attention to 3 other forms of protein production, such as microorganisms, cellular agriculture, as well as insects. And we have 3 very interesting and successful companies with us here today. We have 3, before I introduce the speakers, there are Tom of ProteFarm. It's an insect-based ingredients company from Netherlands. From Singapore, Max Turtle Tree Labs is the first company in the world to produce clean milk, as well as Korean from Fumi Ingredients. And they are producing egg white replacers based on microorganisms, and also a company from the Netherlands. Now, I'd like to call upon each of them, starting with Tom, and then Max, and then Korean, to give an overview of their company and what is it that they're trying to do to transform the alternative protein landscape. So over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Yes. Well, my name is Tom Moorman, and I'm representing ProteFarm. I hope the presentation can be seen. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Tom Moorman. I'm presenting ProteFarm, an agri-tech company is being introduced from the Netherlands. We foresee some big challenges, and for that we have a small, though very effective solution: insects. As we all know, climate change is reality, and action is needed sooner than we thought. And the current moment represents the opportunity to create a new global protein system for a sustainable, nutritious, and equitable food supply. We see that because the problems in the world are reflected by younger generations already striving for healthier lifestyle and food that is sustainably produced. And that is not a trend. We see that as a disruptive change. And the increasing awareness of these younger generation results in a push for more innovation in replacement foods and ingredients. And this leads to a continuous growing market for alternative protein. At ProteFarm, we believe, and our mission is, that we can feed the world without consuming the earth. And for that, we found a great solution: our buffalo larvae, insects. Because insects are a great solution, because they can be raised on a tiny fraction of the land, water, and feed compared to conventional cattle. But if we talk about insects, people often talk about protein, but insects are much more. They're nutritious powerhouses. They contain protein, vitamins, minerals, fibers, and healthy fats. Nutritional powerhouses that we just simply need to unlock. But when talking about insects, people are always a little bit scared and anxious on how to handle. So how do we make mainstream food out of insects? Well, not like this. This is how it's being framed often, and this is something that we do not believe in at ProteFarm. Because if we simply look at food, it is all about 4 things. Food is about, in the first place, about taste. Food is about perception. Food is about quality, and food needs to be affordable. Looking at this, and for this reason, we have developed Adalba Pro, the first functional ingredient line in the world made from insects. By Adalba Pro, we produce recognizable ingredients to produce recognizable food for everyday recipes, using insects, and unlock the important nutrition. With Adalba Pro, food companies are capable of producing recognizable food, because our Adalba Pro ingredient line offers technical functionality, like texture, binding, solubility. And by that, it offers tailor-made solutions for the food industry in bakery, savory, beverages, meat alternative, or anything else you can imagine. Via our industrial scale food grade quality setup, we are capable to supply a substantial amount of ingredients at the quality level required by the food industry. And by that, we solve the issue of quality and affordable food ingredients. But that's just the starting point. You're not there yet, because how do we make insect-based food then relevant? Well, when we look at food ingredients, people at food companies and working in technical jobs always start with, wow, what can I make out of these ingredients? But there's another important step we need to take. We need to start at why. Why are people consuming certain food products? What is the driver behind it for consumers? If we understand these why, we are better capable of filling in the other things like what are we going to make, how are we going to produce that, where are we going to sell it, and when. So what we've done at ProtiFarm is transform this from starting at why, moving to what. Here, just showing you an example of framing a consumer, starting with why, resulting in a great end product into the market. As a result, we have done in-depth market research and found the main consumer drivers behind the opportunities that we find in ingredients made from insects. That's active nutrition. That's all about the quality of our ingredients, because as ProtiFarm, with Alba Pro, we deliver the best of both worlds. Very high quality proteins on the sustainability level of plant-based alternatives. So active nutrition, it is, as said, about sustainability. So it's about a better planet, but it's also about engaging and experiencing. And this is not about fetishizing insects, but it's about novel food, trying new stuff. With this in-depth consumer research, we have developed clear, defined opportunity platforms for product development that can be used by the food industry to develop strong concepts leading into consumer demand and a growing market for ingredients made from insects. So we invite everyone working in the food industry to work with us and join our joint journey in feeding the world without consuming the earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Certainly piqued my interest in trying some of these products one day. And next we have Max, who is the co-founder of Turtle Tree Labs. Max, over to you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let me go ahead and share my screen is here as well. Yeah, let me go and do that. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Not yet.
Okay, 1 second here. Let me go ahead and share this.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me put this on presented. Wonderful. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Great, so thank you guys all. I'm Max Rye. I'm the co-founder of Turtle Tree Labs. As Angela mentioned earlier, we are the first cell-based milk company in the world. It's quite exciting what I'll be sharing with you guys. This is entirely a new space altogether. We are very proud to be leading it right here from Singapore. We are a very global company, happens to be based here. Let me go ahead and start with a story here. Turtle Tree Labs is, as I mentioned, the first company in the world that's able to actually make milk from all mammals using cell-based technology. So the current market size of all of these food areas, many people are surprised when they find out dairy is actually the biggest. It's a $700 billion industry. And currently, the problem that we have is the global emissions are, 37% that come from cows today. And plant-based milks have been an amazing achievement, but however, they're still less than 1% of the overall global dairy market. And that's a huge issue if we're trying to tackle these emissions and sustainability, because the vast majority of the market still requires raw milk as a starting point. And we also do know that currently there's a lot of animal cruelty that's going on. Many of these cows are actually being pumped with antibiotics and hormones. And it's an interesting story. Actually, over the last 20 years, the cow population actually has not really increased. However, milk yield has increased by 40%. That means we're getting 40% more milk out of the same cows over the last 20 years. So that means we're pumping a lot of antibiotics, a lot of hormones, and making these cows bigger and pushing a lot of milk through them. That's definitely not good for these animals. So the solution, we know what cattle farming today is. We call that milk 1.0, and we do see plant-based milks as being a big part of the solution. We call milk 2.0. It's been a great segue into the biotechnology that we are using, called cell-based technology. Now, what's exciting about this is we can make real milk that has the full functionality and it's very sustainable. Now, this is very, very important because a lot of these different products that we're used to, like cheese, butter, cream, yogurt, all of these really require you to start off with real milk, which has all of the goodness in it, all the protein, the animal milk fat, a lot of the different stuff that's in milk that make it what it is today. And how does it work? So we actually start off by isolating cells directly from fresh milk itself. And once we get these cells, we can multiply these things into a large enough number. Following that, we have this special process and a media that's called lactation media that actually causes the cells to lactate milk. And the end product, I mean, what we're really doing is we're replicating the process that happens inside of a cow in the udder or inside of any mammal's mammary cells, the area that produces milk. So our B2B business model, actually we are a licensing and royalty play. Our go-to-market strategy is all about working with the existing players. So that means working with the existing equipment manufacturers. These guys are the people who work with the existing dairy producers. So working with them, we are also working with the dairy consumer brands. This allows us to use our technology and plug it into all of these different players that will need this to be able to transform the industry. We believe this is a very powerful technology, and we want to be able to scale it. And that means working with the existing players to make it happen. Some milestones about Turtle Tree Labs. We started in Q1 of 2019. We filed our provisional patents. We are currently working with A-STAR, which is the National Research Institute. We won the HSBC Sustainability Award late last year. And we also just won the Temasek Foundation $1 Million Livability Challenge as well, very recently. So it's very exciting. Today we have 6 teams actually that are working fully functional, that are working around the clock, about 20 full-time folks in 6 different teams. So as I mentioned about the $1 Million Sustainability Challenge, some of the milestones we're looking for by the end of this year, we're looking at having a 5-liter bioreactor, a commercial scale POC, and start some co-development. And we're looking to have some of our early licensing done early next year. This is exciting because what we're really trying to do is scale. These are some of the biggest challenges around the entire industry. We are working with several partners to make this happen because at the end of the day, building large-scale pilot plants is going to be very important to take this technology to the market. This is our CEO, Fungal Lin, and Dr. Jen Yong, who is our CTO. These are just some of the folks on our team, but overall, we have an amazing scientific team. So this is interesting. So our technology has the potential to transform the entire dairy industry, but also the infant nutrition industry. So if you could ask yourself, if you have a powerful technology like this where you could make milk from any mammal, that also opens up the door for being able to change the way infant nutrition is done and how we are consuming infant formula today, and how we can change that so the babies of tomorrow can actually have access to even better, more nutritious infant formula. So these are some of the things that we are doing here. Thank you guys very much.
And thank you, Max, and congratulations on the many awards. And finally, we have Corian from Fumi Ingredients. Corian, over to you.
All right, let's see, let's find my presentation. All right, I hope I shared my presentation right now. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Excellent, great. So hi everybody, my name is Corian van den Berg. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fumi Ingredients. And we were started from the Netherlands, more specifically Wageningen, and that's also the university where we actually spun out of. Fumi Ingredients, we are a company that is developing natural, non-GMO egg white replacers. And I'll tell a little bit more about that later on. But let's have a close look at some cold hard facts right now on the protein market. And then more specifically, the protein ingredient market. So if you look at that global market right now, actually still over 70% of all the proteins are animal-based. And when I think about proteins right now, I'm referring to stuff like casein, whey protein isolates, whey protein concentrates, gelatin, but also actually egg white. And egg white is actually a dominating ingredient in the animal ingredient space. So over 60% of all animal-based ingredients, it's all about egg products, and it is a huge market. So right now it's an estimate of about 20 billion per year, which is only used for these egg products. And why are they being used? Well, actually they're used in a variety of foodstuffs. So think of, for example, meat replacers, bakery products, sauces, you name it. And the reason for that is not because egg whites are so cheap. No, it's because egg whites have fantastic technical functionalities. And for that reason, it's really the king of the ingredients. Now, there's just this teeny tiny little downside to egg whites, and it is the fact that it has this huge environmental impact. So in order to produce 1 kilo of egg white, you need to actually emit 40 kilos of CO2. So that is really a lot. And yeah, this is where we come in. So Fumi, we want to replace egg whites in the food system. And how do we go about this? Well, we have a process technology in place which is able to mildly extract functional proteins from non-GMO microbes. So what we like to use is really, let's say, typical regular yeast or regular microalgae, and we extract these microalgae or microorganism proteins and ingredients from the cell, and by doing it in a mild way, they retain their function. So you can make a lot of beautiful products with it. So our team is really a group of scientists, which are biotechnologists, process engineers, but also food technologists. Now, does it actually work? Is it doing the ingredient that we're producing that it should do in order to replace egg white? The short answer is yes. So if you think of egg whites and where you typically use it, it's typically used for 3 different things. Either you make foams, you make emulsions, or you make gels. And so for example, if you make meringues from egg whites, that's because of the whipping and the foaming capability. Our ingredient does just that. The same can be said also for emulsification, which is a very important feature for making sauces. And finally, our ingredient is also able, just like egg white, to make so-called heat-set gels. And this is very important for the meat replacer industry because you can then bind stuff together. Moreover, so if we do some scale-up analysis of our process, we see actually that we are able to undercut egg white prices once we scale to full industrial scale. And this, in my opinion, is really the game changer that the food industry needs. A lot of companies also see this potential. So up to date, I believe over 150 companies have reached out to us to start testing our ingredient. So we are trying to scale up as fast as we can. Right now we are at the pilot scale, and we are making the first preparations to go to the demonstration scale. Yeah, that's a little bit about us. So thank you for listening, and looking forward to hear some questions from you all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Corian. So we've got some questions coming in fast and furious. Let's wait for more to come in. But first off, we've got three very interesting teams, and one from Singapore and two from the Netherlands. So to kick off first, I think I'd like to just have an understanding of, the differences between a Singapore and a Dutch company. Yeah. So, most of us are tuning in are from Asia, and you may or may not know that the Netherlands is not very land. The land isn't very big, but it's the #2 exporter of food as measured by value in the world, only second to the United States. The United States has 270 times the landmass of Netherlands. And, Netherlands is also home to the world's top agricultural research institute. I shall not embarrass myself trying to pronounce the university name. It's also a very famous, the equivalent of Silicon Valley in food and agriculture. That's called Food Valley, and since the early 2000s, the motto of the Netherlands agricultural industry really is twice as much food using half as much resources. And Netherlands is also the country of one of the most prolific producers of food and agriculture startups. So the first question goes to Corian and Tom. Could you just share a little about, your experience, what the Netherlands agri and food tech scene is like, so that, just share with us what you know and how that's actually being in that kind of environment that's enabled so many success stories out of the Netherlands.
So Tom, shall I kick off and then you take over? So right now, we are based in this university town that is impossible to pronounce for foreigners, Wageningen University, and it's truly an amazing ecosystem. So even though it is a small university town, a lot of big players are now moving towards Wageningen University or to the campus, because we are really known as the Food Valley. So large companies like Unilever are moving their R&D to it for a reason, of course. And it's really the ecosystem of university, entrepreneurs, but also well-known industrials that make it such an interesting place to be.
Yes, I can only I can only confirm that. I mean, for us, we're a little bit just outside the valley, but still in the same in the same area. But for such a small country, every foreigner would consider the whole country being in the same valley. But we experience that same environment, so literally being a few kilometers further away. Our cooperation with that same university is also very important, and it supports us in doing a lot of research. I think one of the greatest advantages of working with the Wageningen University is that their combination of research and practical implementation. I've studied somewhere else in the Netherlands, but I've not seen this before with other universities.
Okay, so would you say it's a collaboration of the entire ecosystem? You've got your large corporates. You've got the talents from the university. How about the support from the government, and how about the funding scene?
So from what I hear, it's always hard to compare to other countries. I do think that the funding in the Netherlands, it could be a little bit more, especially if you look what's happening in the US and the numbers that you see in terms of investment. When you then compare it to the Netherlands, I think it can be a little bit more. However, the government is contributing so much in let's say in-kind support. So not just cash. I think they are also creating this whole ecosystem that is really helping us out. So it's think that is what also helps a lot.
I agree on that. I think the government needs to create an environment to operate, and I do believe that the Dutch government takes that responsibility, although within a given limitation. Even on local level, we experience that, and we see that the local government is proud of having us in the region. I also agree on the fact that the Netherlands, although is small, if we look at funding, especially some sorts of ag-tech, especially ours, is very capital intensive, and then suddenly a country like the Netherlands can be very small. But I mean, we're talking stakeholders here, and what might be interesting, and I don't know what Cogent's view on that is, but moving all those food companies to the valley as well. Do you believe that they take enough responsibility in embracing that innovation and taking the lead?
Sorry, Tom. In what sense? Sorry, in what sense?
Well, we see a lot of startups like yourself starting in Food Valley in the Netherlands around Wageningen University, but also larger food companies moving towards the valley and in the Netherlands. But do you believe that they take enough responsibility in supporting that innovation?
So we do like to collaborate a lot with large corporates, and I think they are phenomenal in helping out small companies like ours. So they bring a complete different set of expertise that we are lacking as a small startup. That being said, I do think that the expertise that we bring in-house to such a large corporate, which tends to be a little bit slow in let's say setting up new innovation lines, I think that is where startups like ours can really help and really force some breakthroughs inside these large corporates. And I do think these corporates see that. And for that reason, they're really they love to collaborate with companies like ours, and I guess also yours.
Brilliant. And over to you, Max. You know, we've heard some similarities that, you know, it's a small country collaboration with corporates, you know, support from universities. Do you see any similarities between the Netherlands and Singapore?
Sure, it's very interesting. I have a unique perspective because I'm from California, from the Bay Area, so I understand how some of that space is as well, that landscape. Being in Singapore for a good few years now and working on this project, the support system is significant. We just had the opportunity to, my co-founder this morning, to speak to a few of the ministers at an event. So we were just invited to an event where they are launching another $150 million push for startups as well. So, and what they're really doing is bumping up the amount that they're giving new founders and new entrepreneurs from 30,000 to 50,000. So there's so many amazing programs here. However, the challenges, if you look at the challenges, we have food security issues here in Singapore. We also have sustainability pushes here. The consumers here are quite mature. They're expecting, interestingly, I had a question earlier this morning when people said, what is the perception when people or consumers look at your product, not just dairy milk, but cell-based meat, and in one of your guys' situation, insects and so forth as well. So what is people's perception? I don't think I'd be grossed out. Isn't this kind of weird, this whole technology? But that's not the story. What we're finding is consumers are not just looking at new technology, they're expecting corporates and they're expecting global companies to come up with solutions to the sustainability issue. And that's what's happening. So there's a lot of room for growth, a lot of new entrepreneurs that are coming onto the scene that are a part of the solution. But coming back to your early question, the support system is significant. We have the National Research Institute. The universities work very closely with startups here as well. That's some of our experience. And we've also seen a significant assistance from the Enterprise Singapore. Now, Enterprise Singapore does an amazing job at reaching out to global partners and bringing them into SMEs, bringing us together, and seeing if there's synergy, how we can work together, what projects we can work on together. So there is similarities there, as you guys mentioned as well, with the corporates in the Netherlands as well. And by the way, there are amazing companies in the Netherlands. I think there's a tremendous support you guys have as well from the government and the corporates there.
And this is an interesting segue to my next question, which is, and it's addressed to all three of you, so take a time to jump in. So in each of the industries, you've got microorganisms, you've got insects, you've got cell-based milk. Who do you think, or which markets do you think are the likely adopters of these alternative proteins? When do you think, or what does it take for it to become mainstream? And who do you see as the earliest, your market adopters?
Who,
So,
you mean on the consumer side?
Yeah.
I personally think it is a general consumer market. We are, once I said earlier, consumers are expecting solutions, and which is why we've seen a huge demand from even traditional companies. You would never think KFC is going to start doing plant-based stuff, or Pizza Hut. There's all of this trend happening because the consumers are pushing hard, and I think it's happening in all directions. I do believe some of the stuff that I saw with the insect-based stuff, I think a lot of the bars, these type of snacks are easy, high-protein stuff that people will go with. And when it comes to dairy and infant nutrition, it all depends on the value that you have, right? If you're putting together a super high-value product out there, or a nutritional product, but I think there's room for all of these, and I think it's going in all different directions.
So from the ingredient point of view, we see a very strong demand happening from the meat replacer market. So from all these companies that reached out to us, the vast majority is really in the meat replacer field. And one could ask himself, like, okay, why is this happening? And we believe that the reason is that, getting rid of egg whites in meat replacers, it's really the final hurdle that these companies need to take in order to become fully vegan, fully plant-based. And still most of these meat replacers, they still contain either egg white or methyl cellulose, which is also a compound that they don't want to really they don't want to have in their meat replacers. So that's why we see most of the demand coming from those companies. I think the next stage will be really also getting bakery products also completely vegan. But I think that will take a couple of years.
Adding to that, also following Max's reasoning on consumers expecting solutions, I also believe that consumer habits cannot be caught in one absolute belief. There is not one solution forward. I think that changing consumer behavior into a lifestyle that is around health and sustainability is disruptive. It's not something that's just a trend for a few years. And I think that consumers will seek for solutions that help them in changing that lifestyle. And that is a hybrid form. It's not just vegetarianism or veganism. But it's also about sustainable meat consumption. I also strongly believe that in the solutions we see and that are being presented today, it's not just one straight way forward. And I think that companies, especially in food production and in retail, they should step out of that absolute belief and define ways forward in multiple solutions. Because if you look at the generations growing up now, they behave differently. They see that there is limitations in our current behavior and that things need to change, but we need to help them and offer them multiple solutions, not just one way forward with plant-based products coming from, I don't know, soy or pea or whatever, and then that's it. No, that's not it. It requires more. And I think that going back to your question in the first place about markets, I do believe that most of these solutions are not cheap in the first place, so it needs to start in more developed countries. But I also believe that other markets can take shortcuts, because they've shown before that they can adapt very quickly. If you, for example, look at high-tech solutions.
Yep. And sorry, Max, you wanted to weigh in?
Sure. I just want to say, just to add to that, some of those markets, I think, are going to be areas that are in our industry dairy deficit regions, and areas that are not kind of controlled by the lobbyists in the industry. I think those are going to be areas that might, and also food security. This is going to happen out of necessity first, as this trend continues.
All right. And speaking in terms of key consumer wants like cost, taste, functionality, convenience, the health benefits, as long as alternatives can meet those criteria, you know, consumers are very fickle to just go to that. So which is of this, let me just repeat that: cost, taste, functionality, convenience, health, you know, how does each of your companies aim to solve these key issues? And, you know, which one is your biggest hurdle or challenge?
If I may start, I think the one is not in the list, but I think it's time. I think the biggest challenge for our company and probably for a lot of these scale-ups is time. Time to change perception and to convince participants to the value chain to work with our great ingredients. Because as I explained in my presentation, I mean, controlling costs creates affordable food, where functionality enables quality and creates taste and convenience. So that's how we solve these risks and challenges, and by solving that, we are capable of being successful. But then the biggest hurdle is still the pressure of time that's on there every day. How fast can it be done?
Yeah, and then if I may add to this, so in our process, we see that, you know, we could perhaps go for the perfect functionality of our egg white replacer. In theory, that's possible, but that would mean that our process will be extremely expensive. So you need to find a balance. You need to find a balance of, let's say, finding something that just works and is also truly scalable. And I think a lot of these companies will probably, you know, when you scale up, you need to find this balance, like what's going to work on industrial scale and is also really commercially an interesting proposition.
Absolutely. And for myself, coming from building large scalable solutions, what we found with what we're doing is, if we want to make that scalable global impact for something so transformative like the technology that we have to actually work with the existing dairy companies. That's how we do this. That's how we scale this. I had the opportunity, along with my co-founder, to go to some of these plants. Some of them are $800 million plants. They're massive. That's a scale required to feed the world. And that was one of dozens of plants that they have. That taught us quite a bit about where we want to focus on. We want to be R&D heavy. We want to focus. We want to support the existing industry, leverage our technology, build SKUs alongside this industry to support them. This could help us really make that global impact. So when Turtle Tree looks at going to market, what we're really doing is enabling these existing players. And by the way, so far, we've had a great reception from the industry. Because at the end of the day, their consumers are bugging them to, hey, we need sustainable products, and they need to be able to build fully functional products out there. You need to be able to make cheese that tastes like cheese. It's got to function like cheese, and the same thing goes with butter and everything else. And if we can help them do that, they're actually fully on board and happy to do so.
All right. Thank you all very much. We've got 15 more minutes to go, and I'd like to now turn to the audience's Q&A. These are a bit more specific to each company. So top of the list, and this is addressed to Tom. So what is the halal status of the insect protein? And understandably, ASEAN has a fairly large Muslim community population. So, any thoughts on that? And maybe if I can add to that, an additional question on top of that, why buffalo beetle, or how about grasshoppers or crickets?
Sorry, I missed the first part.
Yeah, the first part is the halal status of the insect protein. Yeah. And maybe if I can expand that a little, my understanding is that for a lot of insect protein is actually non-religious, and hence it's pretty much adoptable by various population and communities. But what do you think?
Yeah. That is a very interesting question. I first will go to the other question about why the buffalo beetle. First of all, starting this great adventure, we started from a company that was and is already breeding insects for over 40 years. So there we are leveraging on huge experience working with different species. As you know, we distinguish ourselves from others by being active in the food industry. And as I said before, we need to create affordable food ingredients that taste great. And so, first of all, we've chosen this species because it has a very short life cycle, so that makes it very cost effective. It is very resilient against a lot of threats that can be there for insects. So it can be produced on the industrial scale in a good and controlled environment. But most of all, what is very important is taste. And there's thousands of insects that you can eat, but not a lot of them taste very great. And that some of them are, well, maybe a little bit more sexy or hip and trendy. But if they lack taste, in the long term, it won't be very successful. So that is the reason for choosing the buffalo beetle. Going back to that other question about halal, insects are not being considered halal and kosher. And I think that halal could be possible. Diving deeper into that, but I'm going into a religious expertise that I don't know enough about. I think that for kosher diets, it is impossible. But also there, I believe that and well, I'm going into a risky area, but I do think that kosher and halal is being consumed in a large way by a lot of consumers from a quality perspective, because they're looking for certain qualities certification and coming from the belief that this adds a certain quality standard to it, apart from people who consume it from a true religion conviction. So here again, I believe that people are looking for solutions, and we can help them by producing non-GMO in a very controlled and clean environment, no chemicals involved in production. So a very, very clean and healthy protein source.
All right, and there's also for Tom, when will your product be available in the market, or is it already available in the market?
Our products are already available on the market. As I just mentioned as well, I think the company that from which we started is already selling ingredients made from insects as of 2007. With founding ProtiFarm and bringing that to industrial scale, we've added this innovative processing technology, And by that now we are capable of producing these technical functional ingredients, and they are available for the market. We are proudly that some of these ingredients have found their way to market, and well, just tasted another product yesterday that will be brought to market in Germany soon. So it is there. All
right. Thank you. Another question: how big is the alternative proteins market in Singapore? Anyone has?
Sabine.
Actually, you might be able to answer this better than any of us.
I don't, as off the top of my head, I don't exactly have this number, but what I can share is that in 2019, the food segment called innovative food, of which alternative protein is a huge part. The VC funding into the sector is 1 billion. And for 2020, the first half, in an investment report which we just published yesterday, innovative foods, this segment already exceeded 1.1 billion. So it certainly looks like innovative food / alternative protein is still going to be a very active investment category. We're still going to be seeing lots of headlines in the sector. Basically is still red hot. Yeah. And let's go to the next question. All right. Some questions for Fumi. I don't know if Corian can see it, but basically there's questions around your technology, the type of emulsification, and how is your product different from aquafaba?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
whether its taste is different from actual egg white.
Yeah. So aquafaba is from chickpeas. So basically, when you buy a can of chickpeas and you separate the peas from the liquid, then the aquafaba is basically the liquid fraction. Our product is not liquid, so we sell a powder, and the reason why we go for powder is because it's more interesting to sell powders over liquids, because companies that make food products, they prefer powders over liquids. How is it different? Well, and how does it compare to egg white? So actually, last week we made a lot of prototypes. So we made meatballs, we make a lot of bakery products. We had some external people come over to our company, and they did not taste any difference in the food products compared to the conventional one, which contained egg white. And when you just taste, let's say, our powder versus egg white powder, like without any other food matrix, you do taste the difference. But it's a technical ingredient, so you only blend a couple of % of our ingredient into these food products. So because the rest of the food product contains, the spices, herbs, different aromas, in the end, you don't taste it anymore. Now, if you compare then also to aquafaba, so aquafaba, you can make some very nice meringues with it, and maybe some bakery products. But what you cannot do with aquafaba is you really use it as a binding agent in meat replacers. And that's why we are also saying, hey, this is very interesting. Let's go for the meat replacer field.
Are you gonna be able to match or get the pricing of your product close to market incumbents? And how long is that gonna take?
So it really depends on how fast we can scale. We believe that the first full commercial scale will be operational in about 3 years from now. How competitive are we going to be? Well, we have done the economics, the technical economics, and we see that at full scale, when we use specific types of microbes. So for example, if you use brewer's spent yeast, which is now a waste stream, and we start making egg white replacers from that, we can then even undercut egg white prices. So in terms of production, whether we will then sell it, of course, for a price that is cheaper than egg white, personally, I doubt it initially. But in the end, I think prices will go down. But right now, if you look at the market for egg white replacers, I think they are typically about a 3-fold more expensive than, let's say, regular egg whites.
Okay. And the next question is for Max. It's a question from the audience. You know, there's been some health implications of drinking cow's milk. Does what Turtle Tree aims to do help to alleviate some of those health concerns? And also, there's another question about the cost of production. I read somewhere that, you know, you've managed to cut it down fairly significantly to about $30 per liters, if my memory serves me right.
Yes,
so yeah, so
absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beauty of technology and the beauty of when you're able to control a lot of these factors, right, in the biotech environment. You can make a lot of breakthroughs and synthesize a lot of the media over a period of time and bring the cost down dramatically. The entire industry is doing this. You can expect a lot of cell-based meat companies to be doing this as well. When we first started, it was over $800 a liter. Sounds like a lot of money, but that's how it is when you're working with deep tech. Over a period of time, we've been able to bring the cost down significantly, and over the next few years, it's going to continue coming down. And that's what's so exciting about what we're able to do. Now, to your other question, what was the first question, Angela?
The second question is on cost.
No, aside from cost, because I ended up doing that first.
So does it remove the health issues associated with cow's milk?
Yes, so great question. Some of the coolest things that we can do with this technology is we can actually turn the lactose off during the process. So the things that we can do is bump up the protein levels or the milk fats, turn down lactose, do all these cool things that you traditionally can't do from the animal. This allows us to also make sure stuff that's in the groundwater, the contaminants, don't get into the milk. The future of dairy is going to be, I think, much cleaner and much healthier as a result of these type of technologies.
All right, and just to add on to that, one significant benefit of mammalian milk really is antibodies, and that's a key part of, you know, breastfeeding, right, essentially, which is what Turtle Tree is aiming to replicate or to replace. So any thoughts around that?
Sure. The antibodies, by the way, usually come from the mom's milk, the blood. Okay, so these are very special, and they're unique to that mom, right, and to the environment and the regional where this baby is. And you have to understand, if we start getting into the business of doing antibodies, and antibodies can clash, it becomes a pharma-grade product. Okay, so we want to stay away from that. What's important for us is everything else. There's actually a lot of other things that are in breast milk as well as cow milk that are super valuable that have nothing to do with antibodies at all. So, and some of the things are like HMOs. These are known to help the gut as well as the brain development for babies. The milk fat that's in there, it also helps the development process as well. So we can stay away from antibodies and still have something tremendously better than what we have right now on the shelves, and that's exciting on the human milk side, on the infant formula side, and on the bovine side, you can imagine that being able to create all of these other products like cheese, butter, cream, we don't have to worry about antibodies there at all.
Okay, so we've got a couple more minutes to go, and for some of our, you know, I'm sure there are many aspiring founders amongst our midst right now in the audience. So just to each of three of you, you know, what would your advice be with regards to you know, your entrepreneur journey so far? What have you learned? What key lessons would you like to share with the audience?
So, if I may start off, so up until a year ago, I was just a simple teacher at Wageningen University, and doing a lot of interesting scientific stuff. And I was always playing around with the thought of setting up a company, and it was a bit of a daunting idea to do that. But one thing that was, looking back, was very helpful was joining an accelerator. And this is where you really get some of the basics down of being an entrepreneur, thinking about how you should run a company, be critical on some of your assumptions. I think that is super important. Join an accelerator, and then preferably one with a very good ecosystem that is linked to your topic, which is then food. So that would be my piece of advice for any young entrepreneur that's starting to think about setting up a company.
Great. And on the Singapore side, the same thing. There are a lot of accelerators here. I would definitely say if you're looking to do this, there's no better time to do it than now. This is a great time to get out there, study the markets, look at the gaps, see how you can value add as a person, as a professional. And at the end of the day, look at business. I mean, I always say this, business for good. How can you build a business that you're able to profit off of and also help your community and help the planet at the same time? So I'm a huge proponent of it. And of course, if any of you ever have any questions, reach out to us on LinkedIn as well. We're always happy to answer, happy to help new entrepreneurs, and do anything we can to help.
Yeah, being the last one here, I would just like to add that how breakthrough I mean, we're talking technology all the time and all these breakthrough ideas, and I think that how breakthrough it might be or how clever you are yourself, I do want to say, please surround yourself with smart and intelligent people and strong partners, because please don't forget, in the end, it is all about people.
Thank you so much, Corian, Max, and Tom. I think certainly we have heard from three really brilliant and very interesting entrepreneurs this afternoon. And I'd really like to thank Corian, Max, and Tom for your time today and sharing your very interesting thoughts, your business processes, and you know, your entrepreneur journey. So thank you all very much. And I also like to thank the audience for your active participation and lots of very interesting questions. Thank you so much for your interest. And thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. And I'd like to hand the time now to SGInnovate. Over to you, Emin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for the wonderful discussion with the speakers. I mean, it's great to see that there's actually a very big group who are very interested in the topic. There are like more than 160 of you who joined us today, and we have seen many great questions that was posted. Unfortunately, we were not able to answer each and every one, but it's really wonderful to see that there are such enthusiasm from everyone who has joined us today. So that being said, I would like to represent SGInnovate to thank all the attendees who have stayed with us till now. Big thank you to all our speakers, Tom, Max, Corian, for the webinar. Great insights and discussion points, definitely. For the attendees, do keep a lookout for our post-event mail, which will contain a recording of this session. Do reach out to us at events@sginnovate.com. If you'd like to connect with any of our speakers or have a chat with us, do reach out to us. Then also do remember to give us your post-event feedback when you exit the webinar or through the post-event mail. And last but not least, I would just like to mention, do mark your calendars and remember to register for our next installment of the Future of Food series, which is to be held on the 24th of September. We'll be putting up the event link for registration soon. With that, this is Wei Min signing out from this webinar. Hope that everyone will have a great day ahead. Stay safe, stay healthy. Hope to see you again. Thank you. Goodbye.